order to create a truly inclusive workplace culture, we need to see one another as individuals. In fact, seeing and relating to each other as individuals is what gives us the space to recognize what we have in common. To do this, we need to understand an important point. For some people, individuality, who you feel you are, and how you want others to see you, is inextricably tied to factors like race, ethnicity, and gender. For others, individuality has little to do with which identity groups they belong to and has everything to do with, for instance, their interests or what they're good at. Let's try an exercise. Take a few seconds and write down what makes you who you are. Try to come up with 3 or more items. Now, rank the items on your list in order of their importance to you. Think about what's there. Do you want to add anything? Remove anything? Change the order? Do you think other people's lists look similar to yours? Let's think about this. Some people probably have lists that start and stop with identity group characteristics like race and gender. Others may highlight things like their profession, their likes or dislikes, their hobbies, their personality traits, or their experiences. Understanding these differences is important. Sometimes when people focus on their identity groups, it's a type of reclamation. There can be power in saying, this part of me that was once used to deny me opportunities, that's the thing that I would now like to be recognized for. Others may not view those identity characteristics as central to who they are. They may even find it freeing to shed the constraints of defining themselves by identity group membership. And of course, some people might have a mix of both categories on their list. In this last group, there may be additional differences in that some will rank items like race and gender high, and others will place them low. Members of each of these 3 groups, identity-focused, non-identity-focused, and those who list a mix of both qualities, can be found in all subsets of the population. For example, there are members of minority groups who don't define themselves by their race, ethnicity, or gender, and there are members of majority groups who do. One way to think about this is that how we think about who we are takes as many forms as there are individuals. Let's think back to the exercise we started with. Recognizing that there is a range of possible perspectives on what makes us who we are is an important step towards seeing each coworker as an individual. When we are seen in this manner, we feel valued. This feeling contributes to a positive, productive, and cooperative workplace culture. So what kinds of things do we do that get in the way of this? Certain kinds of remarks ignore a person's individuality. Problematic comments may include asking individuals to speak for a group they belong to, particularly when that group membership is based on identity categories. For example, if you ask your Latino colleague, "What do Latinos think about X?" you've lost sight of the fact that there is no Latino perspective on anything. Sometimes a person does this as they express their own opinions. This leads to assertions like the following: as a woman, Black person, Latino, I think, fill in the blank. These kinds of statements also overlook the different values and unique characteristics of individual employees. The reality is that there are almost always varying opinions within groups whose members might otherwise appear similar. Recognizing the importance of individuality has other implications too. For example, we know that offensive comments can make people feel excluded. So how do we avoid them? Avoiding offending people, a good goal to have, turns out to be fairly complicated for a number of reasons. For one thing, coworkers almost certainly differ from you and from one another when it comes to what they find offensive. Because of this, knowing what to say can be difficult. And because what is offensive to one person may be harmless to another, whether or not a person is offended is a difficult standard to use when determining what's acceptable. Take an extreme case. Even if you thought the best way to avoid offending anyone was simply to not speak, your silence would probably be viewed as offensive to someone. In other words, there's no simple solution. Here's a concrete example. Consider the thorny question of pronouns. On this topic, people's reactions vary widely. For some people, not asking which pronouns they prefer is experienced as offensive. Yet sometimes asking someone for their pronouns is experienced the same way. Or consider another example. A man holding a door open for a woman. Some women may be offended if a man holds the door because it feels sexist. Other women may feel like they're being denied a common courtesy if the door isn't held. These differences bring us back to our overarching principle. Strive to think of others as individuals first and not as part of groups. Then treat each other with kindness and respect. Remember that people vary in their sensitivities, and even when we all mean well, the right choice isn't always clear. Each employee will have a unique threshold, sensitivity, and tolerance, and we can't know in advance what it is. Yet how we choose to engage with one another on difficult and sensitive topics, where offense is more likely to be an issue, has direct implications for the culture we create. Of course, pronouns and door holding aren't the only situations where this applies. In fact, similar challenges come up with almost any issue that touches controversial moral intuitions. Recognizing this tension openly can help employees engage with one another with grace and charitability. The upshot is that we can value identity groups while at the same time treating employees and colleagues as individuals, each with unique experiences and opinions. Okay, we've talked here about some of the pitfalls of not seeing one another as individuals. In other modules, we'll continue to think about this challenge.